You've been told your entire life that you are trapped. Trapped in a broken world. Trapped in a flawed body. Trapped by forces beyond your control, systems, rulers, fate, and even your own mind. But what if constantly being told you have no power is the very thing that keeps the illusion intact? There is a common thread running through the most ancient spiritual texts. Not instructions for escaping a prison, but an invitation to see that the prison was never real to begin with. This is where one of the most revered and suppressed Gnostic texts ever discovered begins, the Gospel of Truth. Not with fear, not with a battle, but with a quiet revelation that nothing binds you except what you mistake for reality, and that realization leads to a truth no text can contain, one known not by the mind that thinks, but by the awareness that sees, because it means the chains were never external, and freedom does not come from fighting harder, but simply from seeing clearly. Most people spend their entire lives struggling against shadows, trying to break walls that are built by their own belief. This is where the Gospel of Truth speaks, not as a shout, but as light entering a darkened room, revealing that your very reaction to the world is what keeps the illusion intact, that it was never about what happened to you, but how you responded to it. It reveals that it was never evil or sin that sustained the illusion, but error, not ignorance or oppression, but forgetting. And that moment you remember, the illusion collapses on its own, without resistance. But if you were never truly trapped, then why does it feel so real? That question alone opens a door most people instinctively close, because the answer does not flatter the ego, it dissolves it. In this video, we'll reveal what the Gospel of Truth actually teaches, not the sanitized version, not the religious framing, but the deeper revelation hidden beneath the language. You won't just see why this knowledge was misunderstood and forgotten for so long. You'll see that the trap you've been struggling against was never holding you. You were holding it. And when this teaching becomes clear, the dream doesn't just loosen its grip. You realize your belief was the very thing that gave it form. To understand what the Gospel of Truth is really saying, you have to forget what you were taught to expect from a gospel. This text was not written to create a religion. It was not meant to establish authority, obedience, or belief. It was a spiritual explanation designed to transcend doctrine and answer why you experience reality as broken, fragmented, and oppressive, even when no visible chains exist. The Gospel of Truth emerged in the early centuries of the Common Era, reserved among the Nag Hammadi texts, a library deliberately hidden in the Egyptian desert. These writings belonged to communities later labeled Gnostic, not because they formed a single religion, but because they shared an idea that threatened the status quo, that salvation comes through knowledge, not submission, not belief, not obedience, but from gnosis. In Greek, the word gnosis means knowledge, but not intellectual knowledge. It means recognition, realization, and the moment something clicks so deeply that it can never be unseen. A truth that cuts through language and logic and touches your inner knowing. And this is exactly what the Gospel of Truth does. It does not describe humanity as sinful. It does not describe the world as evil. Instead, it says the fundamental problem is error, a cosmic misunderstanding to reality itself. According to the text, humanity entered a state of forgetfulness, not because of punishment from God, but because of confusion, like someone who fell asleep and mistook the dream for reality. And from that forgetting, fear emerged, division emerged, and control became easier to justify through belief and doctrine. The text is careful to describe this error not as a force or ruler, but as a fog growing powerful only because it obscures sight, not because it has substance. The illusion didn't arise because something enslaved humanity. It arose because humanity stopped seeing clearly. This was a radical reversal of the dominant religious story, and that's precisely why it became dangerous. As institutional religion grew, authority replaced awareness, belief replaced true understanding, and obedience replaced insight. A text that says you are trapped and must be saved by an external power is easy to control. Text that says you were never trapped, you only forgot, is impossible to weaponize. This is why the gospel of truth was sidelined, labeled heretical, and eventually reduced to obscurity. Yet its message quietly survived in fragments, waiting for awakened minds capable of hearing it without turning it into another belief system. Philosophically, the text aligns with an ancient insight found across traditions, that suffering is sustained not by reality itself, but by misperception and their response to it. In Plato's allegory of the cave, people mistake shadows for truth. In Eastern traditions, Maya is not a prison, it is a misunderstanding. And in the gospel of truth, the illusion persists because it is believed, not because it is enforced. This idea alone reframes everything. If the problem were an external tyrant, the solution would be rebellion. If the problem were sin, the solution would be punishment or forgiveness. But if the problem is ignorance, then the solution is awareness. And awareness does not fight. It does not react. It reveals. This is why the text repeatedly returns to language of light, recognition, remembrance, not because something new must be achieved, but because something ancient must be recalled. The question then is no longer who or what trapped you. It becomes, what happens when you realize the walls you've been pushing against don't even exist? Because when that is seen, the power that was turned against you quietly returns to its proper place. And that is where the teaching truly begins. Here is the first truth the gospel asks you to confront, and it's one most people instinctively resist. An illusion does not trap you the way a cage does. It doesn't trap you with bars, it traps you with misunderstanding. Think about a nightmare. While you're inside it, the fear feels absolute, and you react as if it's real. But the moment you realize you're dreaming, your reaction changes, and the fear loses its authority. Not because the dream vanished, but because you saw it for what it was. This is precisely what the gospel of truth points to. The illusion persists not because of its power, but because of your reaction to it, the belief that keeps it alive. According to the text, the illusion feels real because you identify with surface forms, names, roles, fears, and histories while forgetting the awareness that witnesses them. This forgetting fractures perception, and from that fracture, a false sense of separation is born. You feel cut off, alone, and powerless. But notice something subtle. Nothing is restraining you. Nothing is forcing you. What holds the illusion together is certainty about who you think you are. You believe you are limited. You believe you are defined by circumstance. You believe you are the effect, not the cause. And belief, once unquestioned, feels identical to reality. The gospel of truth never describes humanity as shackled. It describes humanity as confused, a divine being that forgot it was dreaming. This is why the text uses the language of error, not sin, but like a calculation gone wrong, or a line of code misread producing a distorted result. The gospel says that this error has no root of its own. It only persists until it is seen, like waking up in the dream. Imagine reading a map upside down. Every step feels justified. Every turn feels logical. Yet the destination keeps slipping further away. But the problem isn't the map. The problem is orientation. And here's where the illusion becomes self-sustaining. Once you believe you are trapped, you start looking for exits. You search for external saviors. You chase systems, identities, anything apart from looking inward. But every attempt to escape confirms the premise that you are trapped. This is the paradox the gospel of truth quietly exposes. The illusion feeds on effort aimed in the wrong direction. It strengthens when you fight it and solidifies when you define yourself against it. Think of fog. You don't cut your way out of it. You don't battle it. You simply walk in the right direction until it dissolves without resistance. The illusion works the same way. The moment you try to destroy it, you grant it substance. The moment you fear it, You give it authority, and the moment you obsess over escaping it, you reinforce the assumption that it is holding you. This is why the gospel of truth offers no instructions for rebellion, no rituals to overthrow a ruler, and no techniques to shatter reality. Instead, it simply speaks of a quiet recognition and remembrance of what was always present. Because once this truth begins to dawn, the illusion starts to behave very differently. What once felt solid begins to flicker, and what once felt oppressive begins to feel strangely dependent on your attention. And once you see that it's not about how the illusion traps you, but how it requires you to participate, you begin to realize how valuable your attention truly is. Here is where the gospel of truth turns reality on its head. The illusion was never outside you. It was always projected from within. Not through your body, not through your actions, but through your identity and belief in the dream. According to the text, the moment awareness fractures, a substitute self forms, a constructed identity built from memory, fear, desire, and comparison. This identity is not false in the sense of being imaginary, but it is incomplete, and it mistakes itself for the whole. This is the self that says, "This is me, my name, my past, my wounds." And once this identity takes center stage, awareness moves into the background. You no longer experience thoughts, you identify with them. You no longer observe fear, you become afraid. You no longer witness desire, you are the one who lacks. This is how the illusion stabilizes, not through domination, but through identification. The gospel of truth describes this condition as forgetting one's origin. When awareness forgets itself, it collapses into form. It becomes absorbed in the roles it plays. And once that happens, everything appears external, threatening, and out of reach. This is where the text is explicit. The moment when what was forgotten is finally known, the illusion has nothing left to sustain it. The world feels like something happening to you. Life feels like something you must survive, and truth feels distant. But notice the sleight of hand. The illusion never directly tells you, "You are trapped." It tells you, "This is who you are." And once you believe that, the trap no longer needs walls. This is why so many spiritual paths fail, not because they are wrong, but because they strengthen the very structure the gospel of truth is trying to dissolve. They offer the ego a new costume, a more spiritual identity. I am awakened, I am chosen, I am advancing. But the illusion doesn't care what identity you wear, only that you wear one. The moment you cling to any fixed sense of self, awareness narrows. And where awareness narrows, the illusion regains coherence. This is the paradox few are willing to face. The illusion survives not because you are unconscious, but because you are convinced. The gospel of truth does not ask you to destroy identity. It asks you to see through it and recognize that identity is an appearance within awareness. And this recognition changes everything, because when awareness begins to notice identity rather than inhabit it, a subtle separation occurs. Thoughts still arise, emotions still move, life still unfolds, but they no longer define you. You are no longer inside the illusion. The illusion is inside you. This is why the text repeatedly uses the language of light revealing shadows. Shadows don't resist illumination, they simply vanish when seen clearly. And here is the crucial insight. The illusion cannot survive sustained observation. It needs identification, unconscious agreement, and for you to forget that you are the one seeing. The moment awareness turns back on itself, the moment you notice that you are noticing, the structure begins to weaken. Not dramatically, not all at once, irreversibly. This is why the illusion feels strongest when you are reactive, emotional, certain, or afraid, and weakest when you are still, non-reactive and present. The trap does not collapse because you escape it. It collapses because you withdraw the currency it needs to stay alive, your attention. So how do you see that you were never truly trapped. Not as an idea or belief, but as a living recognition that changes how reality feels from the inside. The gospel of truth does not offer techniques in the way modern spirituality does. It doesn't give you steps to climb or systems to master. Instead, it invites you into a shift of orientation, a different way of relating to your own experience. And that begins with attention. Right now, as you're listening, something is aware of these words. Thoughts may arise, emotions may stir, reactions may flicker, but beneath all of that, there is a quiet, knowing presence that notices. That noticing is not trapped. The first invitation is simple. Begin to notice the difference between what appears and what is aware of the appearance. When a thought arises, I'm stuck, I'm behind, something is wrong with me. Don't argue with it, don't suppress it, don't replace it with a better thought. Instead, ask gently, what is aware of this thought? Not as a philosophical question, but a lived inquiry. The illusion thrives on reaction, but awareness weakens it through observation. This is why the gospel of truth frames awakening not as effort, but as recognition. The second invitation is to watch identity in motion. Throughout your day, notice how often you contract into a role. The anxious self, the defensive self, the one who needs to prove something, the one who feels unseen. Each role carries a story. Each story feels urgent. But instead of asking, how do I fix this? Ask something quieter. Who is this happening to? And then notice what remains when you don't immediately answer. You may feel a brief disorientation, a stillness and space where the illusion begins to lose its grip. The third invitation is to stop seeking dramatic confirmation. The illusion convinces you that awakening should feel explosive and instantly transcendent, but that's not how it works. The gospel of truth suggests the opposite. Recognition often feels ordinary, subtle, and almost disappointing to the ego. You may not feel free, you may not feel enlightened. Instead, you may feel less compelled, less reactive, and less convinced by your own thoughts. But that is exactly what happens when the illusion begins to slowly starve as you withdraw your energy from it. Finally, here is the most important shift of all. Stop asking how to leave the illusion and start noticing how often you enter it. Each time you unquestioningly believe a thought, each time you collapse into an identity, each time you assume the story in your head is reality itself, and instead of condemning yourself for that, simply notice it, because noticing is the beginning of remembrance. You are not trying to become something new. You are not climbing out of a pit. You are allowing awareness to return to itself again and again until the illusion can no longer pretend to be solid. This is not a practice you complete. It is a witnessing you deepen. And over time, something quietly becomes obvious. The world still moves, life still challenges you, but the sense of being fundamentally trapped begins to dissolve. Not because anything changed out there, but because you finally stopped mistaking confusion for confinement. If this changed the way you see the idea of being trapped, you don't have to stop here. I've put these teachings into a free ebook called Escaping the Illusion, a Gnostic guide to mastering reality, where you'll find practical ways to apply what you've learned in this video. You can download it for free. The link is in the description. The gospel of truth never ends with a command. It simply ends with recognition. Not a belief to defend, not a doctrine to follow, but a quiet clarity that changes how everything is held. You were never truly trapped, not by the world, or even by the illusion itself. What held you was a misunderstanding, sustained by habit, reinforced by identity, and protected by the fear of letting go of what felt familiar. And now, here's the uncomfortable beauty of it. Once something is seen clearly, it can never fully deceive you again. You may still forget, you may still react, you may still feel pulled back into old patterns, but the illusion no longer has innocence on its side. And this is why the gospel of truth was never meant to spread through force or persuasion. It cannot be enforced, It cannot be marketed. It cannot be used to control. It only works when someone is ready to stop asking for rescue and start noticing what has always been present. Awareness does not arrive as fireworks, it arrives as stillness and the courage to look directly at experience without immediately turning it into a story. So the invitation now is simple and demanding. Watch where you contract. Notice where you identify. Pay attention to the moments you say, "I am trapped," and ask quietly, "Is that true right now?" Because the illusion does not collapse all at once. It loosens, it thins, it loses urgency and authority until one day you shift. If this teaching shifted the way you see the world, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the Gnostic Eye so you don't miss our deep dives into hidden truths each week. Every week, we explore ancient wisdom, unraveling what has been concealed for centuries so you can see reality for what it truly is. Remember, the illusion doesn't exist because it's forced upon you. It exists because you believed it. And when you stop believing, it begins to dissolve.